we look at it and God has a preferential option for the poor. Our elders, they keep our traditions alive, and more importantly, they keep our hope alive. Hi everyone, Angelo here, and it's 11th Sunday in Ordinary Time. So in today's reading, we are in chapter 4 of Mark. And we have Jesus using some agriculture imagery here, where he's talking about like the seed and the land and how it grows. And then here too, we have one of Jesus' most famous parables, where he's saying the kingdom of God is like a mustard seed, and how as a seed, it's like the smallest seed. But then when it grows into the largest shrub. But in today's reflection, I would like to start at the end of this story here, where in the last line it said, he explained everything to his disciples when they were alone. And, us as Jesus' disciples, a lot of revelation will take place when we come alone with Christ as well. So, coming alone is like, if you can, because not everybody can, but if you can, getting away from the busyness of the day, getting away from social media and the phone, any kind of electronics, really. I know it's ironic given, this virtual platform here. At the same time, there is a time and place for everything. And then, who knows, maybe after this, you could try and take some alone time. Especially because sometimes if we don't make alone time, we might end up alone with God anyway, because life have a way of throwing us in such a way that we are left feeling deserted, or even another one could say it, we are left in a state of desolation. And then we end up finding God in the midst of that nothingness. However you can do, commune with God. And for some, that might mean going out in nature. For some, that might mean participating in the sacraments, whichever sacraments. For some, that might mean crystals and frequency music. But however you can, try your best to find some quiet time where it could be just you and God entering into that intimate space. So here too, I would like to express appreciation for the wisdom figures in my life. And the wisdom figures in everybody's lives, really. But people like, one of my dear teachers, Sister Gloria Schaub, who a lot of what I'm talking about today, I am relying on work that she directed 2 of my theses. And a lot of what I have to say, and largely the way I think, is directly because of Sister Gloria. But people like Sister Gloria Schaub, people like, and I mentioned here before, Gloria Bertrand, June Johnson, and then people like Felix Edinburgh, Martin Sergiu, Clyde Harvey, etc. There's so many different people I could highlight, but the wisdom figures of our day, the ones that we have with us in the here and now, the ones that Christ is in them, and we get to enjoy Christ and appreciate Christ through them as our wisdom figures. Because, at least in my mind, Jesus was a wisdom figure, and he spoke in parables. And I see our elders in the same way too, where they are wisdom figures rich with stories. Our elders, they keep our traditions alive, and more importantly, they keep our hope alive. And the thing is, the wisdom of God is that God uses images to communicate with us. And lots of people use images, right? Like, that's not anything novel. At the same time, through all this imagery, there's so much I believe we could learn. And one of the images I would like to look to is from this video with Malcolm Gladwell I was watching the other day, who, at least to me, is arguably the greatest storyteller of our current day. And I'll link that video in the description, the Malcolm Gladwell video. Because in that video, he was asked to talk about the future of the world, right? So what kind of world is being left to Gen Z? And as a millennial, I'm not too far ahead. But he looked at this theory based, it was like a sports theory. I mean, they call it, they were really looking at football and basketball. But based on the theory from two economists, David Sally and Chris Anderson. And essentially what Gladwell was saying is that if you want to improve the progress of a football team, yes, you could improve the best players and you'd make some progress for sure. Yet, if you improve the lowest performing individuals, if you could improve their progress, the progress of the entire team will jump leaps and bounds ahead. And the thing is, all this is to say, because Malcolm Gladwell could look at, the social sciences and, well, all these different sources and come up with this. And at the same time, this is something the church has been saying for so long too. So to me, it seems like there is this clear agreement that we have to pay attention to the least and pay attention to the least first. We have to care for the small C's. We have to let go of the colonial mentalities of centralization and really start to take a more broad approach. Because while, what Gladwell was saying is, while society, let's say prior to this moment in time, was based more on we could put a bunch of resources into a few individuals and those few individuals could then carry society. What he's saying now is that Western society is no longer working like that, or will no longer continue to work like that. It's becoming more, as we get more complex, it's becoming more dependent on a larger number of people. The same way too, what has the church been teaching for so long? I mean, since even from the days of Christ, and even from before, all through the Jewish scripture, we look at it and God has a preferential option for the poor. And God's love goes to the poor first. And the same thing too with the images, like every human being we see is an image or a symbol of God. And images and symbols, what they do is they participate in the reality of that thing that they are the image of, or the thing that they are symbolizing. And that means that every human participates in the reality of God. And what all that means is that when people are in situations of injustice, God is then in a situation of injustice. So we have Jesus here using these images of like the mustard plant. The thing with the mustard plants, they weren't necessarily desirable, I mean, mustard shrubs, in an extreme sense, had a way of threatening economies, in an unstopping and an unrelenting way. The same way too, when I contemplate this image, I feel like this image is meant to threaten and reform economic systems that cause people to live in poverty, and to threaten and to reform in an unstopping and an unrelenting way, just like the mustard plant. And I am convinced that poverty underlies most of our social problems. Not just material poverty, but definitely material poverty, I think, has a lot to do with a lot of the social problems that we currently experience.
Yeah.
But the question is then, how do we bring about justice in this case? How do we care for the small seeds? And God is the one bringing out the justice, but we are the agents of that justice. And we have Jesus talking about the kingdom, or maybe I should say, the reign of God. And we have a way of saying that the reign of God is both here and not yet. And what I understand from that is that the world is still evolving. As much as the world is already created, the world is still evolving. And the world can only evolve literally by the grace of God. And as long as God's grace continues to exist, and God's grace will continue to exist as long as God exists, so as long as God and God's grace continue to exist, we have hope. But how do we then action that hope? There's so many different ways, but the way I would suggest here today is that we can make positive spirals. And what I mean when I say that is I don't see the world as this hamster wheel sort of cycle, but rather is a series of upward and downward spirals all happening simultaneously at the same time. So if we like to bring about the reign of God in the world, we have to be the ones to make positive change to cause the spiral to go upward, and not just be the ones to bring about the reign of God in the world, but also to allow the world to bring about the reign of God in us. And I think this is why, among so many other issues, but this is why taking care of our youth is so important. I feel like this is why taking care of the marginalized and the vulnerable is so important. This is why putting an end to marginalization and its causes is so important. Even if we, or by extension, our laws and our structures, are the ones causing that marginalization. What we put out is what we will get back. We put out positivity. Positivity will come back. We have to be the ones to break the negative cycles and all the negativity by putting positive vibes into the world. I think it's the only way to really break the cycle of self-hatred, especially given that that cycle was inflicted upon us by the greedy in history. But for me, what that means, though, by putting positive vibes out there, is to forgive that same greed that caused a lot of the problems today. I think it means getting creative and promoting positivity through prayer and through action. And I'll keep saying that our evolution is one of love. And when we love, we solve all the problems that plagues us. I think it's the longer route for sure, but I also believe it is the more sure route, the more concrete action to take. Because the more we love, the more we can heal, and the more we can solve so many of our problems. We could heal the issues in society, from domestic and gun violence to corrupt leaders. That love and that healing, that mercy that we could put out, those positive vibes that we could put out, could bring an end to all of this, bring a new transformation to all of this. Because I just don't think it is the will of God for people to suffer the way people are currently suffering. Our hope is that God works in the background, just like the person in the story where Jesus talk about them, the person who sowed the seed while they sleep and while they're awake night and day. The seed is growing and they don't know how. Same way too, that the land is nourishing the seed in the background. And God is very much there working in the background too. Everything is constantly growing and evolving. And if Christ's cross could grow into resurrection, then I am very sure that the sufferings of today will evolve into the results of hope in the future. The same way the seed grows because of the land, when we take care of all the seeds, especially the smallest of the seeds, when our approach is from the land of positivity, we bring about good, solid change. And that's why I think it's important to acknowledge all the positive movements that are taking place in the world, and to continue to grow them and put our resources behind them too. So those positive movements, I hope and I pray that you continue to grow and evolve. Just like the image in this story too, what is seemingly insignificant, as small as a mustard seed, just like the reign of God, it will definitely rise up and stand out. But anyway, that's it from me this week. And as always, I appreciate you so much for watching. Thank you.